What a doubleheader we have, from Austria to the British GP. Two amazing tracks that pretty much always deliver in the racing department. But this GP in particular was the first ever Formula 1 race held in the 1950s. And from then on, it's made memorable moments and has been that track that pretty much everybody waits for in the season. There was quite the controversial victory in 1998 by Michael, winning it in the pit lane when he was handed a 10-second stop and go penalty. At his time, he was pretty much the rule maker. Just like Max is changing a lot of the rules nowadays, Michael in his time was one of those guys. There was also quite the collision in 1995 between him and Damon Hill, going into a corner on lap 45, which both drivers ended up in the gravel. But I mean, even looking at recent times, in 2021 we obviously had Lewis and Verstappen. He ended up making a comeback, but the crash itself was such a big talking point, with Max going into the wall at 51 Gs. In 2022 we had through goes Hamilton, quite the fight at the top. Sainz's first ever victory in Formula 1, with Ferrari actually making a decent car at the time. In 23, the McLarens had a resurgence, becoming the best Mercedes-powered car. Ever since that GP, McLaren has now been towards the top or fighting for a victory. And 2024, we had Lewis Hamilton win his 9th here in Silverstone. Quite the day to win it. I mean, the GP in general was insane from start to finish. It's a track that usually does better with very mixed conditions, but even in the dry, it's a lot of fun. Now, we are looking at a bit mixed conditions as of right now. I would love to see some rain here because it can really throw up the predictions, and it might even sway mine as well. I'm going to go based off of we will have some mixed stuff. Looking at our preview for Silverstone, we actually have a different set of tires than we have had in the previous years. Before, it was C1 to C3, which was the hardest compounds. Now we're going from C2 to C4, which I think is a recipe for yet again another masterclass here in Silverstone. The more stops, the better. It's also a very long pit stop that at it, so teams really have to make that decision, and it's quite crucial on the strategy, especially nailing those pit stops as well. So Sauber, McLaren, and Ferrari, who have all been towards the top, will have that advantage. This track tends to kill the left front tire, and that's mainly because of turns 7, 9, really 12 and 13, and 15. It destroys that front left, so it's very important for them to actually keep that in the working window to be able to go longer and extend the stint, which is extremely important in a track like this where the pit lane is so long and takes up so much time when it's going to be a 2-stop at minimum. Even when it is raining, really keeping that intermediate in the working window for a longer period of time could help a lot and can determine how the race outcome will be towards the end. But looking at what are our headlines, what should we be looking out for here in Silverstone? Well, I mean, for one, McLaren pretty much looked unbeatable in Austria. If this is a track where they can put a 20 to 30 second gap on any car, then it's going to be a lockup for the season. I don't think any other team will get close to them. If they can succeed in this track in Austria, which I think have very different types of downforce required, then McLaren has made an unbeatable car. Those suspension upgrades seem to have helped Lando. Can he capitalize now on those suspension upgrades that were added to the car? It would be his first time going back-to-back, winning 2 victories, which he needs to really stay in this fight or win the fight. Oscar has always been better than Lando on the really high-speed stuff. It's usually in the low speed where Lando can gain, but in this season, it's been Oscar. He's been commanding pretty much everywhere. So we'll have to see in a track like this where it's high speed, straights, very important on confidence. Can Lando actually do it back-to-back? I do think Red Bull is going to bounce back. This is a track pretty much designed for their type of car, but it's also going to be very close amongst all the top 4 teams. Ferrari has found a better balance. Will we see the rear suspension upgrade? Who knows? It's pretty much a myth at this point. And the midfield teams have a lot of upgrades coming. Check out that video if you haven't already. But right before I go into my predictions, make sure you drop yours. It is open for Silverstone. I want to see what you guys think and where can you rank for the weekend. I finally actually got into the top 50, which was huge for me back in Austria. I ended up getting 3rd and 5th correctly. But make sure you're competing. Go over to Unchained Media Inc. Would love to see you guys there, and that support truly means a lot, so thank you all for stopping by. Let's start with my predictions for the weekend. Let's go back to doing the worst and best teams first, starting off with worst per usual. This has gotten so much trickier. Sauber was the easy P10 for me every single time. that has now been taken by the Alpine car, which I do think is the worst. Its qualifying pace is okay, but in the race, it just falls back. Tire degradation is so heavy on that car. And really controlling the rear for both Pierre and Colapinto has been a mess. I mean, in general, that team is a mess. They're looking to actually pick up Bottas, which I would love to see the guy back in the sport. But then, yet again, is there even really a fair chance for Colapinto? What a mess of a team. That is quite the team to be driving for. And of course, Piastri didn't like him very much in Austria as well. That's easily my P10. In P9, it's also a debate. You can throw up a lot of teams here and make really the argument that they could be higher rather than P9, but I'm going to put up Haas. I thought Austria was going to be a very good track for them. It wasn't. I think with the high-speed stuff and that bouncing problem that's still persisting from the start of the year, that's my reason for putting Haas in P9. I still think they can fight for points. Honestly, all of these teams can. Alpine, probably the least amount, but they all have a chance. It's so close, which is the best part about it. Now, Williams was looking like the 8th fastest team at times, but they never truly showed off their pace. The cooling was the issue. Aston could arguably be 8th, but they have some upgrades coming, and they still look really good, especially in the hands of Alonso. Racing Bulls, it's very up for debate in the air. I actually think Sauber is now higher than 8th. There may be either 7th or 6th, depending on the track. For this race, I'm going to put up Racing Bulls. There can definitely be an argument made that the Aston car is up here. I think this is a track more made for the Aston, Williams, and the Sauber car rather than that of the Racing Bulls. But if I had to throw up just the other two to put them up into the mix, I do think Williams will be the best midfield car, with Aston following and then Sauber in that 7th position. It's very close amongst all of those teams. The midfield is truly a great thing to watch. Now looking at the best teams, I think this is also going to be pretty tough for Silverstone. In Austria, it was a bit easier, even though I did make the prediction of Red Bull, but McLaren came in with the traction, which was extremely important. So I'm going to put them back up here in P1. Not by much. I think Red Bull will be P2 with Max. Yet again, I think this is a track designed for him. He will make the difference. I'm saying in qualifying, it'll be some of the closest gaps we've seen, even with it being a pretty long actual lap. And for P3, yet again, just like I threw up in Austria, I think it's going to be a tie amongst Ferrari and Mercedes. They truly have very different characteristics at what they're good at, but I think we can see both teams thrive here. Everybody is up for a win here in Silverstone, in my opinion. The Ferrari has made up a little bit of that gap, and this track should be more representative of that upgrade. Now talking about my unchanged driver, it's going to be a pick, and I'm going to make an actual prediction with it as well as to why he's going to be my surprise. It's going to be Lewis Hamilton. Pretty easy to predict around Silverstone. The guy loves this track, always does an amazing job. I believe he's going to do it again, and in the race, he will beat Charles Leclerc on race pace, which will be quite the task, because in Austria, he was still a bit behind, but much better. Silverstone will be that track. Looking at my surprise team, I kind of talked about it a bit with the midfield. I think Williams is going to be the best car, maybe even fighting with top 4 at some point. We're going to see that resurgence. It's been a bad 4 or 5 GPs for the team, from unreliability to the car just not performing. This track will be a revival of that team. In my worst drive for Silverstone, I gotta say Yuki, unfortunately. You need a lot of confidence going through Maggots and Beckett's. I just don't think he has much confidence in the car. It's on the Red Bull team, but also Yuki, he can't understand what's going on, so I don't expect him to just magically pop up and do better in a track that I think is much harder than that of Austria. But man, do I hope he proves me wrong. Regardless, let's go into my top 5 predictions. Lately, I've been going off the dome. I'm gonna keep it that way because I ended up getting in the top 50. Doing it this way, just whatever comes to my mind, live on video right now. Let's go for it for the British GP weekend. 5th place is hard for me because I think every team is going to be close. If it's going to be mixed conditions, it's going to make it even more difficult to actually predict from 1st to 5th. Something is telling me we could see a crazy 5th place, but at the same time, I just have a feeling this is where he's going to place. I would love to see him higher, but for this race, for the British GP weekend, Charles Leclerc is my 5th position, which might come as a shock. He's typically a little bit higher, and I do think his teammate's going to be ahead of him, but I don't think it's going to be 4th place. For 4th, I had to think about this a lot because you can make an argument for pretty much every driver to be somewhere in these positions. I don't think Lando's going back to back. He's going to be my P4 for Silverstone. Hard to throw him up here. He's actually been pretty decent in his career here. I do think Oscar has the advantage. It was just bad luck in a couple of GPs, both 2023 and 24, where I think Oscar actually had the measure of Lando. It was just Lando who I think outqualified him in both GPs. But this year, Oscar will stay ahead. But we're finally going to see a Lewis Hamilton podium, at least in my predictions, which sometimes come true. Last year in 2024 in Silverstone, I predicted him winning. It was probably the only time I've gotten the top 3 correct. It was Lewis, Max, and I think Lando ended up finishing P3. I predicted it that way, so I think I got the podium down for this weekend. Lewis in P3. I do believe Oscar is going to be in P2, wherever his name is. There we go. And I did predict him last week in winning. I think Silverstone is a great track for the Red Bull car, and Max is Max. So he will be back. He has been a bit negative lately with the championship battle. I do think he's probably out of it, but there are tracks that he can win. Silverstone is going to be one of them, especially in mixed conditions. You can never count this guy out. Plus, they've always been close and dry anyways. Max is my winner, and I do think fastest lap is going to go to Max as well. It's going to be an Imola type weekend for Max. It'll be very close amongst all of the drivers, and just based off of what I have here for a Constructors winner, you know what? You could have made the argument for Ferrari, but because I have P2 and P4, McLaren will be my Constructors winner, which is the easy way out really in these top 5 for the Unchained race weekend. Make sure you guys go and drop yours. Hit that submit button. Let's get a bunch of you. Would love to compete. See if you guys can get ahead of my top 50. That would be nice to see. But if you made it to end, please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.